Heartless, Forbidden, Book 1. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Paulina Schubert. Chapter 13. The wedding was lovely. Even I had to admit that. Mom was a beautiful bride, and Robert was a handsome groom. The weather cooperated for them too, and they got married outside on the green lawn in this mild October day. The adorable flower girl wore a pink dress that matched mine in color, but hers had a ballerina tutu design. Her presence here brought even more joy to the occasion, because she had gone through so much in her short life to make it this far. The lung transplant had freed her from her frequent hospital stays and from the constant threat of death from her severe form of cystic fibrosis. Jasmine now looked and acted like any other healthy, happy little girl. Her mother was the maid of honor, and Robert's friend was the best man. I didn't know whose little boy the ring bearer was. Kate and I were the only other usher and bridesmaid, but there were plenty of wedding guests watching us from the chairs that had been set up on the lawn. I felt ridiculous in my whimsical dress, especially with Cade looking so handsome beside me. He'd smirked as his eyes swept over me before we'd taken our positions facing forward, and I had been forced to hook my arm through his. His black tuxedo made a sharp contrast to his pink tie and pretty pink rosebud boutonniere. People murmured as they watched us walk past them, and I heard several women exclaim the word darling. "You do look darling in that dress," Cade told me quietly when we arrived at the front. I rolled my eyes at that statement, but I forgot my self-consciousness when I saw my mom walking down the aisle. There were murmurs again, and one woman's voice could be heard proclaiming something about the most beautiful family. I certainly agreed that Mom was radiant and beautiful in her simple, elegant gown and gauzy white veil flowing gently behind her in the breeze. Her blonde tresses were styled into loose waves, and she looked so young. I knew that she was young when she had me, but now I realized how young she still was. Skylar's mom was 10 years older than my mom. I had known that, but I'd always looked at my mom just as my mom, regardless of her youthful appearance. She took care of me just like any other mom. Seeing her as a lovely bride, though, emphasized the fact that she was still only in her 30s. My perception of her changed in that moment, and I saw her as a woman who had a separate life from her role as my mom. She had dreams and desires for herself that had nothing to do with me. I felt a bit of what she would probably feel when I left home for college and started to become an independent adult. My feeling of separation between us intensified when she and Robert spoke their vows. She was now joined with him in their new life together. Even more disconcerting was my sudden connection to Cade, because we were now in the same situation. I wondered what he was thinking as everyone clapped and cheered for the newly married couple who used to just be his dad and my mom. They were united now, while our lives had been disrupted and rearranged to accommodate their marriage. All my things had been moved to Robert's house, but I hadn't settled in there yet. Mom and I had spent our last night in our apartment, and we were leaving all our furniture there. I was going to sleep in my new room for the first time tonight, while Mom was going on her honeymoon with Robert. She wouldn't be there to help me transition into a new household. If that wasn't bad enough, Kate's mom would be staying at the house with us for a week, while Robert and my mom were on their honeymoon. Robert's ex-wife? I had questioned in disbelief. He asked his ex-wife to babysit us? Seriously? It was an amicable divorce, Mom said. They've remained on friendly terms. Why'd they even get divorced if they're so friendly? I grumbled. That's none of your business, she told me firmly. I expect you to treat her with respect. She's in charge while we're gone. This is so weird, I complained, but stopped when Mom gave me a nasty look. I was introduced to Cade's mother after the ceremony, because she attended the wedding. She was older than my mom, but she was just as beautiful. Whereas my mom was blonde, Robert's ex-wife was a brunette beauty. Cade got his dark, good looks from her. He also had his mother's deep brown eyes, whereas Robert had blue eyes. Catherine, as she told me to call her, had a voluptuous figure that she was showing off in a sparkly silver dress. Her boyfriend was very attractive, and he looked familiar to me, but I couldn't place him. Lacking Skylar to gossip with, I resorted to talking to Cade. Who does that guy with your mom look like? I know he looks like some actor I've seen. He is an actor, Cade replied. My mouth dropped open. You mean he's actually been on TV? He's had parts on a lot of shows, Kate said, and in movies too. He gets a lot of work as a character actor, according to my mom. Wow, I marveled. That's so cool that she's dating someone famous. He's hardly famous, he scoffed. Mom was probably more famous than him when she was an actress. Your mom was an actress? I exclaimed. Yeah. She was a Hollywood starlet when she met my dad, but she gave that all up when they got married. I couldn't get over my amazement at that revelation. Skylar would have been so excited about it, but I couldn't share it with her since we weren't friends anymore. She had never responded to the text I had sent her, and she ignored me at school. It was exactly what I had expected her to do, but it still hurt to lose her friendship. I stayed out of her way as much as I could, so I kept going to the library during lunch instead of the cafeteria. I brought a candy bar with me to eat on my way to the library, and that was my lunch. Kate had invited me to sit with him and his friends, but I felt like that would be rubbing salt in Skylar's wounds. Curiously, Jenna still sat at Kate's table. She was part of the popular crowd, but it still seemed awkward for her to eat lunch with her ex-boyfriend, especially since he had a hostile attitude toward her. She didn't make a point of ignoring me the way Skylar did, but she also hadn't tried to spend any time with me since Kate stopped her from helping me redecorate my room. I wondered if she had given up on trying to get back together with him. Kate hadn't made any more moves on me since the last time we kissed. He picked me up the handful of times that I had worked late during the past month, and he had actually been polite. There were no more criticisms of my mom and no more attempts to kiss me. I assumed that he had become interested in another girl and lost interest in me. It was a relief to put all that trouble behind me. I had no friends, and I would be out of my element in my new neighborhood, but I could regroup and start fresh with my life like I had after Lucas broke up with me. With school and work, I could overlook my lack of a social life. I would eventually need to make new friends, but I didn't have any enthusiasm for it right now after the mess I made of my friendship with Skylar. She had been the best friend I ever had, and I had ruined everything over a guy who meant nothing to me. Connecting with people didn't come easily to me. Even with Skylar, I had always held a part of myself back. Confiding in people wasn't my nature. It was something that I had to talk myself into doing, and connecting with people was based on confiding with them. That was why I hadn't become close friends with anyone but Skylar, because I avoided telling them things about myself. I'd rather listen to them talk than say much myself. Skylar liked to talk, so we'd been a perfect pair. She had filled all of my silences with her chatter. She would have kept up a steady stream of conversation at this reception, but I was actually glad not to have to feign enthusiasm while everyone celebrated around me. My mom was really moving on with her life, and I felt like my dad was fading further and further into the past. Only I wasn't moving on, but slipping sideways with my life. There was no progress, but there was also no going back. "What are you thinking about?" Kate asked me, and I realized that he had been quiet all through dinner, and the toast that I hadn't paid attention to. "My dad," I replied, my melancholy mood bringing the truth to my lips. "What are you thinking about?" He didn't answer, and we watched my mom and Robert begin their first dance. They gazed at each other with adoration, and it was wonderful to see, but also made me think about my dad and my mom looking at each other like that once upon a time. "I'm thinking I want to get out of here," Kate said. "I'm guessing you do too." "You can't leave," I protested. "It's your dad's wedding." "It's the reception," he corrected me. "We put in an appearance at the wedding, and now they won't notice if we sneak away. We'll come back before the end, and they won't even know we were gone." "We can't do that," I insisted. "I know a secret," he told me conspiratorially. "They got you a present, and I can show it to you right now." "A present for me?" I questioned in surprise. "What is it?" "I'm not telling you here, but I can show you." "You'll have to act surprised for them later, though," he said. "It's back at the house if you want to see it." Since it was close by, I didn't think it would be so bad to leave the reception if it only involved a walk to the house and back. I was curious about what kind of present they had gotten me, and I decided to go take a quick peek at it. There was no reason for them to buy me a present, and I couldn't imagine what it was. I left the huge tent where the reception was being held and walked across the lawn with Cade. We entered the house and went upstairs. He led me past my room, and I assumed that we were going to Robert's room. We walked into a large bedroom with a sleek black and white decor. A big screen TV was against the wall facing the bed. The far side wall was mostly all windows and a view of the green lawn, but the wedding tent couldn't be seen from here. Cade wrapped his arms around my waist and spoke in my ear. "I've been waiting for this." I reacted with a startled lunge forward out of his grasp and spun to face him. "What are you doing? Where's my present?" "This," he told me. "It's all about you right now. I'm not even going to take my clothes off. I just want to kiss you. Everywhere." His abrupt seduction attempt had come out of nowhere, and it didn't work on me. Maybe he thought that I had spent the past month anticipating this, but he was wrong. I was also annoyed that he had tricked me with the promise of a non-existent present. "Not happening," I retorted, and made to move past him. He quickly placed himself in my way. "Now's the perfect time. We'll have the house to ourselves for hours. Don't be scared. We're not going to go all the way until you tell me that you're ready. It's only kissing today, I promise." "No," I told him. "No more kissing. I'm your sister now," and he cut me off with a loud exclamation. "You are not my sister. You can't just become my sister overnight because our parents got married. We didn't grow up together, and we're not related by blood. Maybe if we were younger, I might be able to think of you as my sister, but not when you're the same age as me. Don't even try to give me any bullshit about you thinking of me as your brother," he added. "It doesn't matter what I think," I argued. "It's what you are. You're my stepbrother. I'm not going to kiss my stepbrother." He opened his mouth to say something, but he closed it again as he studied me. When he spoke again, his voice was calm. "That's your only reason?" he inquired. I suddenly felt nervous. "We don't even like each other," I protested. "Now you're my stepbrother too. I lost my best friend because of you," I added as I searched for more reasons. That one stoked the fire of my resentment toward him. "You're selfish and you think you can have anything you want. You even lied about getting me a present just to get me up here." Anger sparked in his eyes. "I guess I should have given you your present first. You don't pay, you can't play. I know the drill." I glared at him in outrage. "Are you saying you have to pay me for sex?" He flashed a cruel smile at me. "Come on, Lexi. We both know you can't get anything for free. What kind of presents do you want? Jewelry? Diamonds? Emeralds?" I furiously stomped around him and ruined the effect of storming out when I tripped over my dress and almost fell. Cade laughed, but I didn't turn to look at him. Walking more cautiously, I left what I now guessed was his room and made my way downstairs and back to the reception. The dance floor was now filled with people, and I sat down at our empty table. After sulking there by myself for a while, I was surprised by Cade's mom setting a glass in front of me and taking a seat beside me. "You look like you could use a drink," she said. "I'm 17, I told her. "I'm not allowed to drink." "No one's going to card you here," she replied. "It's a special occasion. Haven't you ever had a drink with your mom on New Year's? This is like that." "My mom has never let me drink," I said. "She doesn't drink either." Catherine's eyebrows raised at this. "Okay. Well, she must have her reasons. I was just trying to help. I know this can't be easy for you." "Robert's been very nice," I made a point of telling her in loyalty to him for his kindness to me. "He's a good man," she agreed. "But I know it's been just you and your mom for a long time. It's been the same for Cade with his father. This won't be an easy adjustment for either of you." "Everything's easy for Cade," I muttered. "Don't let him fool you," she said. "He doesn't show his feelings, but he doesn't handle everything with ease. His way is to withdraw when he's upset. Unfortunately, he learned that from me," she explained with a regretful tone. "I wasn't there for him when he needed me most." I had wondered why Cade lived with his father rather than with his mother like everyone else I knew whose parents were divorced. He had mentioned spending time with her over the summer, so I knew she hadn't abandoned him. Since Robert trusted her to stay with us for 2 weeks, she obviously wasn't an unfit mother. Maybe she had just thought that he needed his father to guide him and control him. She glanced away from me and her expression brightened. "Cade," she called out, "come sit with us." She had the same loving look on her face that my mom did when she looked at me, so it was clear that she loved her son. Cade approached us and grabbed the drink she had brought me. He swallowed half of it in one gulp before sitting down beside me. He looked past me at his mom, but I felt like his focus was on me. His deliberate choice of seating was intended to annoy me. He could have taken the empty chair beside his mother, but chose to crowd me. I was now stuck between them because I felt like it would be rude to Catherine for me to just get up and leave. He had also taken my drink without asking. I didn't want it, but he hadn't known that. He had done it in spite, and his nerve was unbelievable. After insulting me by suggesting that I wanted him to pay me to have sex with him, he had the gall to be mad at me for turning him down. I turned my attention to Catherine and ignored him, although I remained on edge and aware of his unwanted presence beside me. "Do you have any classes together?" Catherine asked. "Robert told me you're in the same grade and go to the same school." "We have physics and U.S. history together," Kate answered. "We were partners on a history project and we got an A." I had been surprised that he had done his share of the work on the project without complaint. It was one of the reasons that I had been lulled into thinking that he would give me no more problems. Now that he had reverted back to form, I knew not to let my guard down again. "Good job," Catherine praised us. "I'm so glad to hear that you're getting along so well, too." I concentrated on keeping my expression neutral, because I couldn't fake a smile for her in response to that comment. I could only imagine Cade's smirk. "Cade," she prompted him, "dance with Alexandria." "No," I protested. "I don't want to dance." "Of course you do," she insisted. "Every girl wants to dance when she's wearing such a pretty dress." "May I have this dance?" Cade inquired like he was a gentleman. I glanced at him and saw him standing with his hand extended to me. "No," I told him flatly. I wouldn't dance with him even to keep up appearances. My gaze was hard as I looked at him, and my mouth was set in an unforgiving line of disapproval. I should have offered some excuse, but I couldn't lighten my voice enough to sound convincing. Cade's gaze shifted slyly toward his mom. "She can't dance. She's so clumsy that she trips over her own feet." "Cade," she admonished him. "It's true," he said. "She already ripped her dress." He brushed his hand over my knee as he swept it to indicate the location of the rip. I looked down and saw that there was indeed a long tear in my gauzy skirt. It must have happened when I tripped on it in Cade's room. "You should take it off," he suggested. My gaze returned sharply to his, but his expression was neutral. "He's right," Catherine said. "It's a detachable skirt, isn't it?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Take it off, then," she urged. "You don't need it, and you'll have more freedom of movement without it." I wasn't keen on removing a layer of clothing, even if it was flimsy and barely there. But it was an opportunity to get out of this spot I was in right now. When I stood up, though, Cade prevented me from leaving by swiftly moving into the space between me and my chair. He bumped me into the table, and I stood with my thighs rigidly pressed against it to avoid contact with Cade's body behind me. "What are you doing?" I demanded angrily. "I'll get it," he assured me, with his hands digging beneath the sash, covering the fastening of my overlay skirt. It was simple to detach, but he fumbled with it unnecessarily as he let one finger slide down to touch my tailbone. I jerked at the sensation and rattled the glasses on the table. Before I could say anything in protest, he victoriously proclaimed, "I got it!" His arms came up as he pulled the skirt away from my body with both hands. I intentionally elbowed his arms as I brought my hands up to take hold of my overlay skirt. "I've got it now," I said, and he finally let go and stepped sideways out of my personal space. I was now able to take a step back away from the table to pull the skirt away from the front of my body. I tried to lay it over the back of my chair, but it began to slip off. Cade snatched it before I could. "I'll run it up to the house for you," he told me and took off with it. I turned back around and saw Catherine watching me with a bemused expression. She made no comment, but I spoke in an attempt to get past the incident she had just witnessed. "So, where do you live?" "Near Los Angeles," she replied as I sat down. "In California?" I asked stupidly. "That's far." "It was a 5-hour flight," she stated. "So that's where you met, your boyfriend?" I hurried past the fact that I had forgotten his name. "Kate said that he's an actor, and that you're out there by Hollywood." "I actually met him at a school play. I teach drama, and his daughter had the lead role," she explained. "You're a teacher?" I asked in surprise before I realized how insulting that might sound. Kate told me that you were an actress." "That helped me get the job," she acknowledged. "But I did get a bachelor's degree after my divorce." "I don't have to work," she admitted, "but my days were too empty. And I love the excitement the kids have for acting." "You didn't want to get back into it yourself?" I questioned curiously. "It was too late after being away from it all those years," she answered. I wasn't an A-list actress, so nobody would have remembered my name. There's a lot of competition for parts, and they mostly go to young actresses. If you're my age, you already have to be known in the industry. Oh, I responded, feeling bad for her giving up her dream when she had the chance to make it big. I'm satisfied with where I am, she told me. It's fulfilling work, helping the kids improve and gain self-confidence. Satisfied, I echoed. Does that equal happy? A shadow of sadness crossed her face. It's the best it can be. And I have Cade, she added as her expression brightened. It was then that I realized she must have been thinking about the daughter she had lost. I mostly forgot about Cade's deceased sister, who I now recalled Mom telling me had died at the age of 10. I wondered how long ago that had been, and how old she would have been now. Catherine's boyfriend came and asked her to dance. I was alone at the table when Cade returned, but he took a seat a couple of chairs away from me. We silently sat and watched the people on the dance floor, until Mom came to drag me out there before she tossed her bouquet. The little flower girl's mom was the one who caught it, and everyone laughed when the little girl ran up to her mom and demanded it with an outstretched hand, yelling, "My flowers, Mommy!" "You're my beautiful flower," the pretty young woman told her. The removal of the garter was next, but Robert kept it G-rated and glared at the DJ when he made a crack about not enough foreplay. "Okay," the DJ moved on quickly. "We need all the single guys now, all the single guys to the dance floor." Mom walked back to the table with me. "You need to go out there," she told Cade. "Unless you eloped and didn't tell anyone about it." He didn't smile in response to her quip, but he got up and walked onto the dance floor. Just like me, he didn't attempt to catch the prize when it was tossed. Catherine's boyfriend caught it and held it aloft in victory. "We've got a surprise for you," Mom confided to me in a hushed tone. "What is it?" I asked. "You'll have to wait and see," she told me. "Oh, I can't wait for you to see it," she added with the excitement of a little kid. Now my interest was really piqued. "Come on, tell me," I cajoled. "At least give me a hint." She looked like she was going to say something, but she clammed her mouth closed as Robert and Cade returned to the table together. Robert sat down next to Mom, and Cade sat down next to his dad. Mom noticed my dress. "You decided to take the skirt off. I'll have to get a picture of you like that, too." Robert called over the photographer, and I posed with my mom. She decided that I needed one with Cade, too, since he was my partner, even though there was only a slight variation in my dress. The photographer wanted us to pose with our arms around each other, but I snapped at him to just take the picture. "Are your feet hurting in those shoes?" Mom asked me, assuming that it might be the source of my crabbiness. "Yeah," I lied. "Just sit here and relax," Robert advised me. "If you need anything, Cade can get it for you." I could have run Cade ragged with constant requests for him to bring me something to drink or eat, or even for him to bring me a sweater from my room. The evening was cool, and my strapless dress didn't provide much warmth. Even with all the body heat inside the tent, I felt a little chilly, probably because I was just sitting there and not expending any energy. Cade remained seated where he was too, but we both went back to our regular seats when the entire wedding party returned to the table after the cake was cut. I was seated beside Cade again, but I ignored him while we each ate a piece of wedding cake. He didn't move when everyone scattered back onto the dance floor, but he didn't try to talk to me either, so I remained where I was until I felt the need to go to the bathroom. I stood up and began walking away, but Cade caught up to me. "Leave me alone," I told him as I walked toward the opening at the end of the tent. "I'm going to the bathroom," he said and overtook me. "Right," I snarked back at him. "Just when I have to go. That's when you have to go." He slowed his pace and spoke when I caught up to him. "You have your own bathroom, so why do you care when I go to the bathroom?" "You're following me around," I griped. "Just leave me alone." "I live here," he exclaimed in annoyance. "I've always lived here. You're the one who doesn't belong here, so stop acting like you own the place." He sped up then and left me lagging behind. I didn't see him when I got to the house, and I didn't cross paths with him after using the bathroom. He wasn't at our table when I returned to the reception, and I later spotted him sitting at another table with his mom. When the reception was finally over, Cade came back to the table with Robert and my mom. "It's time to go," my mom told me. I stood up and we walked out to the garage together as I wondered which of Robert's cars they were taking to the airport. The size and cleanliness of the garage astounded me again when I saw it. "Walk down this row and pick out a car for us," Robert told me as he gestured in the direction he wanted me to go. Okay. I agreed in confusion over why he was leaving the decision to me. I began to walk slowly while looking at every shiny car. They all looked brand new, even though some of them were classic cars. There was no reason for me to pick one over the other. But when I stopped at a random car, Robert called out to me to keep going. So I decided to go down to the end of the row and pick one on the way back. I saw the one with the big red bow on it before I got to it, and my steps slowed to a standstill. When I turned to look at Robert, he was standing only a few feet away with my mom. They were both grinning. "Surprise!" they exclaimed together. I stared at them in disbelief. It's yours," Robert said. "I wanted to get you a red one, but Cade was sure that you wanted one exactly like his." My gaze shifted to Cade, who was standing several feet back from Robert and my mom. His expression was unreadable, but he continued to watch me. "We can trade it in for a different color if you want," Robert was saying. My mouth opened, and I could still barely form words. "A car," I breathed. "Go take a look at it," Mom urged me with all the excitement I was too stunned to feel. My movements were slow as I turned and took the steps needed to carry me to where the black Mustang was parked. It was exactly like Cade's except for the big red bow on the roof. I stood there gaping at it in silence. It couldn't be mine. I had coveted Cade's gorgeous car, but a car like that could never be mine. "Say something," Mom pleaded. "Do you like it?" She was standing beside me now, and I turned to gape at her instead of the car. How could I not like it? "But Mom, it's too much. I can't afford—" "It's already paid for," Robert interrupted me. "It's all yours, Lexi." He held up a keychain as he called me by my nickname for the first time, and he walked over and handed it to me. The metal keychain had Lexi spelled out in silver letters inside a pink heart. A car key and a fob were attached to it. Emotions swelled within me as I gazed at it. I lifted my eyes to look at Robert. "I can't believe you did this for me." "Thank you, but this car is too much. I can't—" He interrupted me again. "It's not too much. If it's not too much for Cade, it's not too much for you. We want you to know that we will not differentiate between the two of you. We'd love to see you take it out for a spin," he glanced at his watch, "but we have to go. Come see us out to the limo." "Limo?" I questioned. "We got one to take us to the airport," he replied. I smiled in bemusement. He had all these cars, but he had gotten a limo. It was the kind of thing he probably hadn't given a second thought to. He held my mom's hand as they walked out of the garage together, and his thoughtfulness to her was what mattered to me. My shock had mellowed, and I didn't glance back at the car, but I remained aware of the keychain I held in my hand. I clutched it as I hugged Mom and Robert, and as they hugged Cade. He did a half-hug kind of thing in return. "Your mother's in charge," Robert reminded him. "Yeah," Cade said as he stepped back further from him. "Have a good trip." "Have fun," I told him with much more enthusiasm. Cade turned to give me a look that stopped just short of rolling his eyes, but Mom and Robert smiled warmly at me. "You too, sweetheart," Robert replied. "Enjoy your new wheels." Cade did roll his eyes then. The limo driver opened the passenger door, and Robert waited for my mom to get in before following her into the back seat. The driver closed the door behind them and walked around to the driver's side as their window lowered. They smiled and waved at us as the limo began to move away from us. I stood waving until I could only see the back of the limo. Then I was left alone with Cade, and I simultaneously became aware of the evening chill. He regarded me in the glow of all the lights. The house blazed with them, and the yard was lit up all around the house. "Sweetheart," he mocked me. "How do you like your new wheels?" Annoyance marred my good mood, but I wouldn't let him taint the incredible gift I had received. It was from Robert, and my mom, I reminded myself, and Cade had nothing to do with it. Well, he had picked the color. I wanted to trade it in for red just to spite him, but the truth was that he was right. I did prefer the black one that was just like his. I looked down at the keychain in my hand and felt a trickle of excitement. "I love it," I said honestly. When I glanced up, I saw him gazing at me with a smile. "I knew you would," he stated softly. My heart started in confusion. Its rhythm was interrupted, and it no longer knew how to respond to Cade. Instead of trying to figure it out, I walked away from him while saying that I was cold. The front door opened as I approached it, and Catherine smiled at me as I stepped into the house. "Good night," I told her. "You're going to bed already?" she asked in surprise. Long day, I replied, aware of Cade's presence behind me. I kept going and left him behind while Catherine spoke to him. When I got to my room, I closed the door and took a calming breath. It had been a really long day, and I was suddenly tired. I made sure that I locked the door before taking off my dress. The gauzy overskirt that went with it had been draped over the settee, which was a cushioned bench. I placed the dress on top of it with the thought of taking them to the dry cleaner tomorrow. After taking my first shower in the luxury bathroom I was too overwhelmed to revel in at the moment, I put on my pajamas, turned off the lights, and went to bed. I would process everything tomorrow, but now it seemed surprisingly easy to let the events of the day drift from my mind, probably because they seemed like a surreal dream.